What is going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to talk to you about Healthier Choices Management, ticker is HCMC. They did provide a spin-off update. I wanted to go over what the update means, go over the good, the bad, and the ugly, everything that you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that, let's get right to it. So this came out yesterday, September the 12th, and it says Healthier Choices Wellness Corp announces public filing of registration statement for proposed IPO and its spin-off by Healthier Choices Management Corp. So ultimately, they do say that the planned IPO is going to be for Q4, which based on their original projection was supposed to be, I think, beginning of Q3. So a little bit later than that. But in here, I think the more important aspect of this PR is the actual numbers. So it does say that there's going to be roughly about 400,000 shares of Class A common stock. Underwriters could potentially increase that by 60,000 if they see fit within 30 days, and that's going to be at the IPO price. And they don't give any update in here, but previously they did say that they are aiming for around a $10 IPO price. And when it comes down to Class A common stock, you can kind of just see this as newly created shares. So ultimately, dilution. So straight out the gate, not necessarily the best. They are also going to be doing, obviously with the dividend from HCMC and investors that obviously are going to be holding from the ex-dividend date, you're going to be getting a combination of Class A stock and also Class B. So there's going to be roughly, it looks like about 7.5 million shares of Class B created, and that is going to be for the whole spin-off associated to that. Class B shareholders are going to be locked up, so there's going to be a lockup period of 90 days. So let's talk about this for a second. So let's say you do hold and held into the ex-dividend date. You are going to basically get equivalently of your total dividend, 20% in Class A that you can trade immediately, and the rest of the 80% is going to be in Class B that's going to be locked up for 90 days. So that's a little bit more of an easier breakdown of that. But no matter what, Class A you can kind of just see as ultimately just straight up new issuances, or at least of this 460. So there is dilution with a dividend and stuff like that. But here is my problem, and it is exactly right here. So Mr. Holdman does say we will be announcing a new record date for ownership of HCMC in order to qualify for the dividend. So when it comes down to it, a lot of people did buy. So let's pop over to HCMC's website. So this is under the news section, and it is right here if I remember correctly. So this is the update. So it does say that therefore you should not own the stock no later than April 26th. So they did have a dividend date or ex-dividend date of ultimately April 26, 2023. So if you held on April 26th, then essentially you are going to be justified to get HCWC, because as well, based on this PR right here, they did have the ratio, so 71,000 to 1. So let's say you had 60,000 shares, then unfortunately you were not going to get any HCWC. You had to have had at least 71,000. So when this news was announced, there was a bump up in the stock price because people were trying to adjust buy to the obviously latest or round up essentially, if that makes sense. So there was a lot of people that did buy, and plus it does state in here that after the ex-dividend date, you were no matter what, regardless, going to get HCWC, and technically the HCMC shares you could still keep. So a lot of people did sell out of HCMC like I mentioned, because essentially after the ex-dividend date, HCMC kind of became worthless. I know some people disagree with me on that, but that's how I see it. But when it comes down to this whole situation, and based on what they recently just announced, there's going to be a new ex-dividend date. So when it comes down to it, I see this as a very, very big problem, because essentially they are opening themselves up for a lawsuit. Because like I mentioned, a lot of people did essentially buy, which actually raised the stock price to 0002. And just to give you a good perspective, we are at 0001, and even from today, it's obviously the 6 digits and then 1. So of course, some people could be at a very, very substantial loss essentially, because they were trying to buy based on this ex-dividend date. So the fact that they are now announcing a new one is just extremely problematic. And I don't know as far as the liability, because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a financial advisor, but when it comes down to suing, I think they'd have to sue HCMC that basically has nothing. So I don't know if they can actually get away with this essentially, or how that might work out. Again, just maybe speak to a lawyer about this, but this definitely is a very big middle finger to a lot of investors. Especially considering as well, based on over the last several months, insiders have just been massively dumping their shares. So this is just like, I don't know, this is just fraud 2.0 happening. This definitely turned south very, very fast. And like I mentioned, as soon as they do announce the new ex-dividend date, this is where if you do qualify for that, then this is where you're going to get that 20% in Class A and 80% in Class B, that there is going to be that lockup period. So definitely, I think this is very problematic, that aspect. If they would have kept the old dividend date, then yeah, things would have been fine. I'd have absolutely no issue with this because they are going on the New York Stock Exchange, as what they do indicate. They give a lot of numbers, very good numbers, kind of a little bit. But when it comes down to this, it's just, this is completely crap. But just for argument's sake as well, let me know your thoughts on this. Do you think I'm kind of jumping to conclusions too much? Or for instance, if you are one of those individuals that did buy right before the ex-dividend date to maybe round up to that 70,000 or 71,000, or you just bought in because you want HCWC, did you, like, what's your thoughts on that? Because some of you, I'm sure, did buy in at that 0002 because it did have that jump up in the stock price, but I don't know. I see this as problematic, very much so. And it does say right here, as previously announced, HCMC intends to spin off the wellness subsidiaries, namely its 14 natural and organic health food stores, wellness center, and online entity at thevitaminstore.com. And that's one new thing as well, is previously they weren't going to do the actual vitamin store. It was only going to be the grocery chain and the wellness center. So they are now taking almost every single asset that has any value whatsoever and moving it to HCWC, leaving ultimately just the intellectual property, the lawsuit. And yes, I'm sure some of you are very excited about the lawsuit, but that in among itself is still years and years out that might result in absolutely nothing. So this, I think, is just, it was and did have a lot of good opportunity. This is why when I was covering it since 2001, I haven't been giving obviously so many updates lately, but this is why before this was had a lot of hope for this company. But based on what they've been doing and for this to actually go down like that, this is just the biggest middle finger to investors single-handedly. Like, this is just absolutely crazy that management can actually get away with this. And I'll be very surprised to not see a lawsuit because of this. So let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. Do you think, like I said, I am wrong, I'm right? What's your viewpoint on all that? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And even though HCMC is kind of screwing some investors, what you can do is take advantage and get some free shares by this with this promo. So sign up for an account with Moomoo, which is completely free to do. They also give $0 commission, free level 2 trading. But if you throw $100 at it, you get 5 free stocks. So this in among itself is one of the best deals, only up until September the 20th, or sorry, September the 30th. Link in the description below and also the comments. And with that said, I appreciate you all watching.